Hey, everybody. Brian Zimmerman here, executive editor of Jazz Is Magazine and host of Jazz Is Live, coming at you at a Wednesday afternoon. We got a really special episode for you today. Keyboardists, you're going to want to pay attention. Jazz fusion fans, you are going to want to pay attention. Fans of classic rock, you're going to want to pay attention too. That's because my guest today is a rock and roll Hall of Famer. I don't get to say that too often. He was born and raised in a town you might have heard of, Asbury Park, New Jersey, on East Street specifically. That's right. He is David Sancious, and he was a keyboardist in the East Street Band alongside the boss, Bruce Springsteen. But that was just the beginning for this cat. He was also the leader of the band Tone. He was a session player that performed and recorded alongside the likes of Peter Gabriel, Sting, Jack Bruce, and John Anderson of Yes, who we have had on this very podcast, by the way. He just released a new album called Eyes Wide Open. That is a snapshot of our times right at this very moment. I mean, he's tackling themes of, oppression, civil unrest, police brutality, and yet it's super, super musical, very deep grooves. We're going to be talking to him about all of that. So please welcome to Jazz Is Live, the one, the only David Sancious. David, are you there?
I am right here.
Hey, man, thank you so much for joining us. This is an absolute pleasure. We were talking a little bit about this before the show started, but you're joining us from Hawaii. Is that correct?
Yeah. The island of Kauai.
Wow. You're an East Coast guy, grew up in New Jersey. What brought you out to Hawaii, man?
Well, I wanted to come to Hawaii since the very first time I came here for work. I was on a tour. I think it was the end of I don't remember. It was either the end of a Sting tour or a Peter Gabriel tour. But the minute that the plane landed, and it wasn't on this island, the minute they landed, I think we were on Maui or somewhere. The door opened and the air and the sunlight and the whole sensation, I just felt like this is where I belong. It just was like calling to me to you need to be here all the time, And it took many, many years, I really wanted to move here back in the late 90s, really. But there was work going on and other life circumstances. But finally last year, everything sort of coalesced and came together to allow me to do it. And here I am.
Very nice, man. How's the scene out there? How's the Hawaii jazz fusion?
And the weather is fantastic. I would be on the beach now, except for our interview. But I had a little surgery on my hand last week, and I can't go in there. So you can see that. Can't go in the ocean for a while.
I hear you. Yeah, it must be hard to play keys too. So it's kind of.
I can't do any playing for at least another 2 weeks or more. So,
wow, man. Well, hey,
but it's great here. I mean, I really love it. There's a natural beauty to it that you just can't get over,
I believe it, man.
It was wonderful.
A little bit of heaven on earth. Well, listen, dude, while you are resting and recovering from your hand surgery, we have this awesome musical document to listen to, Eyes Wide Open, which I want to talk about in a minute here. Just want to remind people watching, if you have a question for David, if you just want to say hi, let us know where you're watching from, feel free to write us in the comments section of Facebook or YouTube. We'll throw those comments up on air and get to those questions at the end of the show, if there are any. Also wanted to quickly thank David real quick, if I can, the DC Jazz Fest, one of the people who make this show possible. The 16th annual DC Jazz Fest will be streaming live from our nation's capital Thursday, September 24th through Monday, September 28th. It will be bringing world-class jazz programming to the global stage for the very first time, with over 20 performances from international superstars and homegrown talent alike. This year's festival will celebrate the real DC. Join them for 5 days of performances, interviews, and other exclusive jazz content. Watch for free on Gather by Events DC, fans.com, or the DC Jazz Fest Facebook page, and you can learn more about the 2020 DC Jazz Fest at dcjazzfest.org. Right on. And I know, David, you growing up with the E Street Band, we're kind of splitting the New Jersey, Virginia thing. So DC is another good scene, man.
That's right. Yeah, always loved playing in DC.
Yeah. Great musical legacy there. Duke, of course, from Duke Ellington from Washington, DC. But hey, man, the new album is awesome. Eyes Wide Open. And Jeff, if you could pull up the album cover of this thing, this feels like you could have written the material yesterday, man. It is so timely. Just the themes you're dealing with. I mean, just look at that cover, with the protests, the police. I'm curious, when did this thing first start coming together for you? And when did the bulk of the recording take place?
Well, it started coming together in this form probably just after the election, when Donald Trump won the election.
Wow.
Right then, that was a real, excuse me, that was a real, a sort of push for me to finish it. You know, I've been working on some of these songs in between touring for, you know, for years. But my way of working would be when I have time, to, sorry,
No worries. Popular guy. We get it. We
yeah.
get it.
No, that's ridiculous. When I have time to work on stuff in between touring, you know, I call musicians, I organize a session, and I mean, so sometimes I would fly people. In fact, the drummer Adriano Molinari, who I met through touring with Zucchero, this Italian artist who you may know about.
Yep.
We had a break in the tour, and I flew him over, and you know, stayed at my place for like about a week, and we did all kinds of recording. So I would do it like that, and then work would happen up again, and I would set it aside, never forgetting about it. And but I was sort of taking my sweet time,
Right.
putting it
Right.
together. And when the Trump thing happened, it was just like, I was so sad. I was heartbroken. I stayed in the studio for 3 days. I didn't come out. I swear to you, I stayed in the studio for 3 days, and I tried to just not distract myself, but like, I don't know, calm myself by just trying to create as much.
Well, that's what's so amazing to me is the way you like channel those impulses into making music, you know, and the lyrics on this album obviously address specific themes, you know, but you've got tunes on there like War in Heaven, for example. You've got this tune, War in Heaven, no lyrics. This is an instrumental tune that is in a lot of ways. I mean, you feel it the most. It's like the most poignant. You really distilled the sense of like unrest and uncertainty. How do you channel feelings like that into music the way you did? I know that's a pretty vague question.
Yeah,
it was just so affecting, man. It was like so powerful.
It's one of those things, and music is so subtle that it's hard to linguistically get a sense of what it actually feels like, you know, for an individual. But you know, inspiration comes from all places. I mean, the title "War in Heaven."
Yeah.
A long time ago, I mean, ages and ages ago, I was reading the Bible on my own. I did a sort of study of Christianity and Buddhism and Hinduism and different religions. I think I was around 11 or 12 years old, and I read in the Bible, you know, Revelations is like an acid trip. If you just read the book of Revelation, it's really wild, right? Yeah. And so in there it says I'm describing and such happened, and there was war in heaven.
Right.
And the very concept of war in heaven was like, wow, what must that be like? You know, and that just sort of visually got me. And I don't know, the piece unfolded. And then I called up Vinny and I were, Vinny Colaiuta and I were working with Sting at the time. It was early 90s. And we had a break from a tour, and he used to live in Connecticut back in the day when I lived in Woodstock. And we had enough time in his break. I rang him up. He came over to the house, and we hung out for like 3 days and played a bunch of stuff. And he got it right away, the concept of it. I mean, his playing on the track is it's insane. Yeah. You know, how beautiful he's playing the song. It's crazy.
It's an embarrassment of riches for drums, man. You got Vinny, Michael Bland, who played with Prince.
I scored on the drums for sure.
Yeah, big time. And they make the album, man. And it's just a perfect summation of grooves, man, from your entire career. Because, you know, I feel a lot of like fans of Stuff. Remember Stuff?
Right.
Richard T. are going to definitely dig this. So it kind of had that New York 80s, 90s sound where like there was this parallel. I was just talking to Christian McBride about this. It was a great period of New York in like the 80s, early 90s, where there's like a parallel fusion, right? There was the fusion that was doing the rock stuff, and then there was, you know, the Breckers and the Richard T's laying it down with a different kind of fusion. And you know, your music is a nice bridge between the two. Yeah,
there was that fusion that was there was a kind of New York sophistication to it.
Yeah.
And like harmonically, you know.
Yeah.
Guys that put their own sort of, you know, harmonic slant on it.
Yeah.
But then brought in those other elements. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a really rich time. I mean, remember the time where all of that music was brand new, and it was also a hot moment where it was commercially successful.
Yes.
right? You know,
Sliver of time. Yeah.
stole some records. Weather Report stole
Yeah.
some records, man.
Yeah.
You know, it was an amazing. No, of course, all those bands like Genesis and Yes and Gentle Giant. Yeah, it was an incredible time for us musically.
Yeah. You find that coming back at all, you know, these days in terms of crossover and audiences being a little more open-eared?
I do. I think I do, you know.
Yeah.
But coming back in a different way, like a lot of music today, a lot of music, what you hear on sort of radio, let's say, common, what you hear the most on radio, it's got a bit of, God, without sounding like a, you know, okay boomer or something. there's an element of sort of staticness to it. It lacks a certain dynamism. And of course, it's based on repetition, right?
Right.
And repetition can be very, very interesting, really interesting.
True.
But what it's not, I find, is it doesn't have a certain, gosh, here we go. It's hard to talk about. It lacks a certain, I don't know, spontaneity or something. It all sounds a bit of spontaneity and dynamism. It's all very kind of dynamically monodynamic. That's what I'm trying to.
Right.
It's a bit monodynamic, a lot of stuff today. It can be very interesting and well done and all that.
But there's no, as Whitney Balliet called it, there's no sound of surprise, you know.
There you
Even
go.
within repetition, you can discover some kind of evolving element. But yeah, no, I agree. And who was it that said, I mean, I think they've attributed this quote to everybody who's ever played jazz. What is it? Talking about music is like dancing about architecture, you know. It's
Frank Zappa.
Frank Zappa, yeah.
I think that's Zappa quote. It's brilliant.
There you go. There you go. So we appreciate you, you know, being on here and trying to do it at least. I mean, I've made a career of trying to do it, and
it's always worth the effort.
Exactly. Exactly. Very cool. Well, let's take it back, man. To the beginning. I want to know, because we hear this city tossed around so much, you know, in public, Asbury Park, you know, Asbury Park. It's like, you know, rock iconography. I want to know like what the scene was like in Asbury Park. Like, take me back there. What clubs were you going to? What record stores were you going to? What were you listening to in your house? You know?
Wow. Well, the scene in Asbury Park back in the day, the one thing about it was safe.
Oh, okay.
It was physically safe. You know, there wasn't a big gang scene in Asbury Park in those times in the 60s, early 60s, mid 60s. So it wasn't a big gang scene. So if you were, you know, kind of careful about yourself, you didn't have that to worry about much. And musically, there was only one place to play at, really, which was the upstage, you know, which is why it wasn't like there were like 4 places like upstage where all that was going on. That was really the sort of central place.
Right.
And but as a scene, it was just you know, it was the 60s, man. It was like that club was like the bottom level of it. First you had to walk up a flight of stairs. It was over top of a shoe store, Tom McCann's shoe store. And then the first level you come to was a coffee house, all acoustic, just folk music and folk singers like that. Walk up another flight of stairs, it was psychedelic. The walls it was like black and psychedelic painting on the walls, you know, black lights and everything, and really some serious electric music. And it was the place where, you know, if you wanted to play, if you thought you were good enough to get up on a stage and play with someone, that was your shot, you know.
Proving ground.
Yeah. And luckily, I had the kind of confidence to where I sort of I didn't have any fear about it, and maybe I had so much confidence that I didn't sort of think anything other than like the most natural thing in the world to get up on stage with some other players, even people you don't know. Yeah. So what? We just met, you know. Let's play.
Yeah. So that was like your first performance. You had the keyboard there and sitting in at the coffee shop. Was that the start of things?
Well, that was the start of, like, you know, I knew that I wanted to do it all the time.
Yeah,
that was the start of, you know, an outlet, you know, away from the house in my other neighborhood. Because actually the town I grew up in is Belmar.
Okay.
East Street is in Belmar, but Belmar is about 8 miles away from Asbury Park. You know, and sometimes if I couldn't hitchhike or get a ride, I would just walk to Asbury Park.
8 miles. Wow.
Yeah, it's not so bad.
Worth it for the gig, man. It's worth it for the gig. And talk about your own like history with piano, because I understand you were trained classically, like a lot of piano players. You were trained classically, right? Because that was what was in the house.
Yeah.
Parents were musicians. Yeah.
No, my mother was a musician.
Oh, okay.
My mother professionally was a school teacher.
Okay.
But when she was younger, she had the opportunity to have some really good classical lessons. My mother, it's funny, my mother and all my aunts, or 3 other aunts, somehow they all got classical piano lessons, and they all could play really well and sight read really well. I mean, my mother's, to this day, I mean, she's passed away, but she was a better sight reader than me to this day. She could just open up anything and just have at it. It was amazing, really inspirational. So it was from watching her play that really inspired me. And she taught me for a year. And then I had really about, I don't know, 8 more years of lessons with a guy named James Connell, who was like a classical virtuoso at the time. And but the thing about it, all while I was studying classical and listening and being exposed to it, all these other influences were happening at the same time, like the jazz influence, which was really from my father very strongly, because he appreciated classical music, but that wasn't his sort of cup of tea, you know?
Right.
He was deeply into jazz. He loved all the organ players. He introduced me to the players like Jimmy Smith and Jack McDuff, Group Holmes. And all those people used to come through Asbury Park. There was a place called the Orchid Lounge, where the professional, like not the kids trying to start out and get somewhere, but the professional players used to play. It was called the Orchid Lounge, and it was a jazz club. And my dad used to take me to see everybody there. I mean, I saw Kenny Burrell, every organ player, like Jimmy Smith, you know, all those people.
Such a strong legacy of jazz organ in, you know, South Jersey, Philadelphia, in that area.
Yep. Yeah. So all that, you know, and so at the same time, I'm listening to classical music and I'm studying classical piano. And then I have 2 older brothers, and their influence were like rock and roll. And my older brother was very into avant-garde jazz. Cool. My middle brother, we're like 3 years apart. We very much share the same taste, but he turned me on to rock and roll things that I wasn't familiar with. So I was like the benefit of being the youngest member in a house where everybody had their own distinct, musical, you know,
nice little potpourri of sounds, man. And you get that vibe from, you know, the group that you would inevitably go on to join, you know, the E Street Band with Bruce Springsteen. You get the sense that all different kinds of music was in everybody's ears all the time. So how did the individual pieces of that band come together? You know?
Ooh. How did that band come? Well, I'll tell you that night, I've been asked this many times, but you know, what was it? When was the first night you met Bruce? So it was one of those nights where I was walking to Asbury Park, summertime. And I get to the club, I walk up to the top of the stairs, I see Gary Talent standing at stairs. Gary and I had met a few weeks before. We had done a recording session for somebody, I don't even remember. But he was a bass player on the session, I was a keyboard player, and we got along great right away. So I'm walking up there and I see Gary, and Gary's standing next to Bruce. And Gary and Bruce are organizing the next round of, you know, jam sessions that's going to happen. So I get up there, Gary introduces me to Bruce, you know, I shake his hand, hey, nice to meet you. And he says, do you want to play in this next, you know, when the next jam thing starts on? I said, yeah. Well, this thing went on for like about 3 or 4 hours, you know, once we started playing. And there were people who would come up on the stage, play for a while, and then leave, and other people would come up.
Right.
And this went on until about, this place closed at 5 in the morning upstate. So 5 in the morning, we're walking out, and we're walking towards our cars or our bicycles or whatever we were doing. And Bruce goes to me, he goes, you know, he was in this band called Steel Mill, which was very popular, very famous locally. Right. He says, I'm going to stop that band, and I'm thinking of starting something new. Would you be interested in being in the band? And I said, absolutely. And that was the start. And that didn't become the E Street Band, and wasn't called the E Street Band until later. Gotcha. But that was the beginning of me playing with him. And then Gary, he asked Gary to do it. And, you know, on. And then Danny and Vinny. And then we met Clarence. Clarence came along, and that was the icing on the cake,
Right, right. Did you get the sense meeting Bruce that was like, oh man, this kid has potential. He's good voice, good songwriter.
That's an understatement. This kid has potential. Bruce, back in those days, man, he was the hottest guitar player in the area. The kind of
Oh, okay.
yeah, he was like a gunslinger on the guitar. It was amazing.
Nice.
There were like two,
nice.
three guys who could really play stuff.
Nice.
And take solos and really well. And he was playing at the time a more heavy metalish kind of form of music. It didn't sound like the first songs of the E Street Band at all. It's quite different.
Oh,
but no, he was again locally famous. He was Bruce before he was Bruce.
As a chopster? Because I feel like a lot of the guys who become songwriters and vocalists
way before he ever made a record.
Yeah,
he was locally the cat.
Yeah,
way before he ever made a record. So I knew who he was. When I'm walking up the stairs, I just hadn't actually met him or played with him. But yeah, and you can be around the guy for like about 5 minutes when he's like, got a guitar in his hand or sitting at the piano and singing or something. That's the real deal.
And did you connect over jazz stuff too? Did he have,
we connected over all kinds of stuff, even over classical things,
Yeah.
Bruce listens to and is aware of a lot more music than you might expect because of
I don't doubt
he composes.
Yeah.
But no, we connected on everything musically.
Yeah. Very nice. And it's as you guys were recording those first few albums, the critics kind of came upon this term, what was it, like the Jersey Shore sound.
Right.
Do you think that's a thing? And could you possibly explain because you guys were the chemists behind the Jersey Shore sound. So, what do you consider the Jersey Shore sound?
Well, calling us chemists is like almost giving us a little too much credit. It wasn't all quite that thoughtful. It's just like there was a similarity between what we all like. There's a certain part of music that we all liked and listened to and wanted to be able to play, influenced by. And I think maybe that's the thing, was that we did have a sort of musical, okay, we're going along. We have different degrees of skill and different stuff, but we all like this same area of music and would really like to be playing it and playing it as well as we can. And again, there weren't like 3 or 4 guys like Bruce around. There weren't 3 or 4 guys like me around, if I say that mostly,
No, definitely.
I think it happened to be, and same thing, there were not like 3 or 4 people like Clarence Clemens. No way.
He's a one of a kind.
Yeah. So I just think that fortunately, it was luck or good fortune to have met each other when we did, and to just be even the same area geographically. I think it's just a happy twist of fate, really.
It is, man. It's one of those things like the founding fathers, they put all these beautiful minds in one place at the same time. It was awesome, man. And the amazing thing about this group was you guys, like you said, you guys were all chopmeisters. All different kinds of music, but at the same time, you were able to tap into this vein of popular appeal, and you knew not to overcomplicate things. I remember I was talking with Miami Steve about the recording session for 10th Avenue Freeze Out, and there were some heavy cats. I think Randy Brecker was in the horn section for that, and trying to do all these jazzy, lines, which I'm sure sounded great. But Steve said basically, let's just tap into the groove of this thing. Let's keep this mellow. Let's strike a balance. Let's keep the focus on the song, everything in service of the song, right? And
that's it. That's it. You have to serve the song.
Yeah.
First and foremost. And you have the hippest idea in the world. It could be amazing. But if the idea doesn't serve the songs, doesn't serve the interpretation of the song, then, you're better off not doing it.
Yeah. And Bruce and you and the E Street Band, you guys really embodied that for sure. Tell me about, because obviously that was kind of like, a launch pad for you, and the stuff you did afterward was awesome, with Tone. But tell me about the decision to leave. When did that happen? That came after Born to Run was released, right?
Yeah. Let me think. The decision to leave, I'm trying to tell it to you right now. Wow. I remember it was summertime, And I believe so. Yeah, it was somewhere around the release of it. It's a little cloudy there, actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had a talk with Bruce and said the record company had offered me a contract, is what it came down to. And we did a long run at the Bottom Line, like a 5-night run at the Bottom Line.
Okay.
That band. And during one of those nights, someone from Epic Records, like Bruce was signed to Columbia. Epic was a division of Columbia. So someone from the record label came backstage during one of those shows and offered me some studio time. They'd heard demo tapes that I did when I lived in Virginia for a couple of years.
Oh, cool.
And then so that all developed. And then I did the studio time. They finally said, yeah, we really like it and we want to offer you a contract. And then around that time, I knew I was going to do it. And I didn't feel comfortable doing my thing and sort of doing Bruce's thing at the same time, because I wanted to put the same kind of focus and energy into what I was doing as the way that he was doing it. You know?
Okay. Yeah.
And, you know, but he totally understood, you know, he understood like, this is a great shot. And, you know, he's always been, even after I left and when I was with the label, he used to get in touch and like check up and make sure that everybody at the label was like treating me right, you know.
Wow.
No problems or anything, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember after the first record was done, The Forest of Feelings was done, he was living in Long Branch then. We got together at his house. He was living by himself in this little beach house. And we listened to the whole record, listened to every track of Forest of Feelings, sat there in the living room, listened to every track and like talked about it. He was pointing out things that he really liked about it. And yeah, it was.
Right on, man. Yeah, no, I mean, and you appeared on a few more albums after the fact, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But you could just tell, you know, that the stuff you were doing with Tone, you were like, you know, flexing a little bit of a different muscle. Beautiful fusion feel, beautiful, you know, jazz feel. And, you know, as a band leader, you were really laying it down, man. I'm curious as to, you know, some of specifically your jazz influences, because, you know, you were young, you got your start in the E Street Band, and here was your chance to do your thing, kind of develop your own sound. So I'm curious as to the sonic influences that went into the development of that style. So from a jazz perspective, who were the keyboardists that you really, you know, kind of idolized?
Oh, that's easy, man. The big three were Keith Jarrett, Chick Corea, and Herbie Hancock. Everybody else take a seat.
That's a hell of a big three, man.
Those three, man, I did my best to really, I was inspired by all of them. How can you not be? I mean, they're playing some of the most gorgeous and inventive piano playing of all time. Yeah. But those are my three pianists that I really,
and super versatile. Did you ever have a chance to, because they were contemporaries, I mean, did you ever have a chance to play with any of those cats?
I got a chance to play with Chick Corea, actually.
Oh, right on.
Yeah,
right on.
It was really nice. His it's now his wife, Gail Moran.
Yep.
Used to sing. She did some backing vocals on a couple of my records, and one day he came to pick her up from rehearsal. We were rehearsing at what was that place called in New York City? SIR.
Okay.
SIR, big rehearsal place.
Okay.
And he came to pick her up at the end of the day. And we were rehearsing in one room, getting ready to go on tour. And Mahavishnu Orchestra was across the hall in the other room rehearsing.
Wow.
And so he came in. I think he stuck his head in there, said hey to John for a minute. He came in. And we got into this jam session. We had all this keyboard set up. And we just went on for quite a while, you know. But Chick has always been a big supporter of mine, you know, and very, very complimentary. And yeah, but you know, I've seen Keith Jarrett play live.
Yeah,
and I've seen Herbie play live. But those three, I mean, that's a lifetime of influence there. If there were only those three guys playing piano,
yeah, it's so true. Yeah, you'd have, you know, and they're just, like I said, so versatile. I mean, the stuff with Keith, who will sit down and do not only a classical, you know, concert, but a totally improvised, you know, concert, and then turn around and be playing Rhodes, you know, and Miles Davis, like 70s electric band.
I mean, the sickest thing in the world is that one time those guys were in the same band together.
I know.
Miles' band during that.
I know.
Are you kidding me? It's insane. You know,
all those cats under the same roof, man.
Speaking of that classical connection, just the other day on YouTube, I saw there's Keith Jarrett and Chick Corea with the Tokyo Symphony Orchestra playing a Mozart piece for 2 pianos.
Wow.
And this is, they both look a lot younger than they are now. I don't know exactly what year it was done, but
Yeah.
it's a total classical thing. And it's like set up, and the way they do the camera shot, they split it. So you can sort of see both of them playing at the same time, 2 like 9-foot pianos facing each other with the orchestra. But to see, you know, these guys that people think of them as they're jazz master geniuses,
Right.
but they also studied deeply that technique of classical piano.
Totally.
And that's what sets, and that same thing with Herbie Hancock. That's what sets those players apart, I think.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And what a lot of people don't realize too is that they were also kind of like sound engineers during that time, because unlike today where you just press a button on a keyboard and you get these cool sounds, back then, as you know, you had to create with these synthesizers these unique sounds. You know, it was like switchboard operators with the Moog, you're plugging in wires, and you're creating the sound that's coming out of the instrument. So all those iconic sounds you hear out of the Odyssey, or like the, I don't know the exact instruments, but they were making those sounds, you know. And those keyboardists, I don't think get enough credit for creating sounds that have become iconic. Now, were you ever really heavily into the, you know, patches and the tech of all the stuff? Yeah,
absolutely.
You had to be, I guess.
You know, I actually wish I still had some of the old gear back in those days. I don't have it. No, I enjoyed that. And I think that's a part of a learning curve, because apart from being I also consider myself a synthesist. Right. I'm not a keyboard player. I can play anything with a keyboard, but I'm also a synthesist. I'm very interested in sound construction and how you layer sounds and combine sounds together, and how you can, in live. The thing I like to do live most of all is when you program a synthesizer for someone's show, for instance, Sting's going on tour, you get the set list of what we're going to do. Each song on the way that I use 88 note weighted key synthesizers, the Yamaha Montage specifically, you program, each song is like a map. Yeah. And in that map, you can subdivide the keyboard, you can layer it, you can split it up, you can have all these special things going on. Right. But that's a lot of work. I mean, I ran multiple tours for Sting and for Peter Gabriel. Imagine Peter Gabriel, the sophistication sonically and complexity of some of that music, it's incredible. Yeah. It's a big job. But then after you set it all up, you have to remember that map. You have to, and that's where a lot of rehearsing comes in. You have to remember what you did, how you set it up. You have visual cues, of course, on your instrument to see it. But when you're performing like that, you have to remember what's going on. Like the singer has to remember the words without an auto cue, or like, you know, the drummer has to remember where you are without paper, you know? Yeah. But it's a ton of fun, man. It's just unbelievable what you can do live in real time with a properly set up synthesizer. It's crazy.
It's amazing. And that's what I want to stress, you know, people listening, you go and listen to, like you're saying, a keyboardist on tour with a major artist, some of those albums from the 70s, those fusion albums, that soundscape that you hear, it is not just a keyboardist pressing a button. They created those sounds, you know, they molded, they sculpted those sounds. So, you know, very cool, man. Dave, you got roosters back there, man?
Yes. Oh, God. Yeah, there's roosters are kind of wild here in Hawaii.
And, very cool.
Sorry. Yeah, they occasionally do this thing.
I like it. It is a dream of mine to live in a place where I can have like raised chickens and goats, but not too far from like a jazz club. So I don't know where on the earth that is, but so with Sting, man, were you on tour? Were you touring with Sting before this whole lockdown kicked into gear?
The last touring I did with Sting was probably it's 17.
Oh, okay.
2017. We did something in Vegas.
Okay.
But no, I wasn't doing that. Before the lockdown happened, I was really, I had a project called Moshaloo with Dennis Chambers and Jeff Berlin and Noy. We didn't do a record. We did a project in Cuba. We did a really nice, like a PR thing. And then we did a brief East Coast tour. We did about 7 or 8 shows from New York to Chicago and kind of back. And then we did, this is the last time I was on a stage live anywhere, was in Europe. We did 5 festivals. Okay. It was like Romania, Amsterdam, somewhere else, and somewhere else. The last place was in Germany. Okay. And then that was sort of the end of that project. And so since that was July of last year, after that, I came home and finished the record. and then
the new one. Okay,
my house and moved here and all that. So
right.
I
Okay.
haven't been live in a while. I'm dying to once this heals. You know?
Yeah, and we hope so, man. No, Oz is great. Oz Noy, the guitarist, the stuff that he does with those quarter tones and kind of in between pitches, and so hopefully we'll be able to hear some material from that.
You know, the whole sort of impetus for me being involved in it was really that Dennis Chambers had agreed to it. Yeah. Just fantastic.
Very cool. How did you link up with Sting, though?
Sting was a phone call in '91. I had met him years ago because when I was in Jack Bruce Band with Jack Bruce and Billy Cobham and Dave Clemson, the manager of that band, John Scher, was a big East Coast concert promoter.
Gotcha.
And every time let me tell it right. He was a concert promoter. And whenever the Police came to the States, they always played like the Meadowlands. And I would get invited down to the show. Right? Okay. But I really met him. In Germany at a TV show called Rock Palast.
Okay. Oh, and I know Rock Palast.
The bill was Graham Parker and the Rumor, Jack Bruce and Friends, and the Police.
Wow.
And we finished our sound check. TV sound checks are kind of like really like boring and kind of long. It can be weird, but we finished our sound check. And as we were doing it, we looked over the side of the stage and all three of the Police were just standing there checking out the whole sound check. Because like Sting was a fan of Jack Bruce. I don't think you knew me from Adam, but Jack Bruce. Right. And Stewart's a fan of Billy Cobham and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that was the sort of first introduction. And then after that, every time they played in America on the East Coast, I got invited to come see the show.
Wow.
So then it becomes like 91. He's working on Soul Cage's album, and I get a phone call from his technician saying that, can I come to Italy and help him finish a record? Because Kenny Kirkland, who had been doing the record, had sort of gone missing for a while. And no one could find him, and Sting really wanted to finish the record. So he asked me to fly to Pisa, Italy. And then that was the first time recording with him. We did like about, I think, 4 or 5 songs on that album, maybe more.
Wow.
And, that was it.
Another guy who I've heard just open-eared to all kinds of music, loves his jazz. And, again, chops that, you wouldn't necessarily, that we may take for granted because he's such a good songwriter and such a good singer.
Incredible songwriter. The thing too is the bass chops. The really unique thing about his writing, and is that he comes up with the most imaginative bass lines. Yeah. In a song like Fortress Around Your Heart. Just there's too many examples of the bass lines are like really, really original. That's not some usual sit. But again, he can pull it off as a composer. That's his composerness coming through. But he has the chops to do that. But he's like you say. I mean, he's into music from other planets. I mean, nothing sort of escapes his interest.
Right. Yeah. And we can walk it back a little farther to Jack Bruce, because I can imagine it must have been a trip for you to play with him, because you idolized Cream growing up, right?
Absolutely. One of my favorite bands. And I was thinking about it the other day. I got to work with 2 of the 3 members of what was one of my favorite bands back then. Working with Jack first, and then years later, I got to work with Eric for a while. Wow. And but it was great working with Jack, And he really actually, I'm singing on this new record, Eyes Wide Open.
Oh, yeah, you are. Yeah.
And he, along with other people, really inspired me to sing. He actually taught me a lot about the technique, like where your breath comes from and how to have good intonation and all that kind of stuff. But he was inspirational to be honest, to be in a rehearsal room and like very close to him and like listen to him sing and watch him play at the same time. He had this voice. His voice was like a combination of a Scottish soul singer, but like in the vein of, say, Otis Redding, who we love Otis Redding. But it also had this operatic quality. Jack, a strong operatic quality. It's a unique combination.
Balance of dirty and clean, man. Yeah. It was
and dramatic.
And dramatic. Yeah.
No.
I love it. And just a guy, genre didn't matter. It was just a word. You could do anything. Yeah, you're singing a lot on the new album. Is this your kind of vocal debut?
It is, actually.
Yeah.
I what happened was I really got serious about it when I was working with Seal back in, I worked with Seal for about 3 years in the late 90s, I think 97, 98, 99, somewhere in there. And again, someone who really will just blow your mind if you're standing next to this person and he starts singing. Yeah. The sound of his voice, the beautiful way that he sings, it really inspired me. So he had a vocal coach that he traveled with during the session. It was for the album Human Beings.
Okay.
We recorded it in Vancouver. And he said, if you're interested, I'll give you some time with my vocal coach. He showed me all these great exercises to develop your voice and, get all the crap off your vocal cords and stuff. Yeah. And then I really started working on it. And then I had a few occasions to sing backing vocals on other people's records. Like one time I got hired by Hall & Oates to do a session for one of their albums. I think it was a Christmas album. Oh, Hall & Oates Christmas album. And I played keys on it, but then they got the other part and they said, hey, do you want to, we're going to do some kind of gospel background parts on a few songs. You want to sing? I said, sure. And myself and the three of us, John and then I forget who else was in it too. But it was like four of us. We did it live,
That's wild.
So backing singers. And I had a few more opportunities to sing backing vocals on other people's records. And then the more you do it, the more confidence you get. Yeah. And like I say, in once the election happened and Trump won, and I had all that time in my studio, I just really dug in and got better and better. I lost any degree of, let's say, shyness or something.
Inhibition.
No, it can't shut me up from singing now. It's like,
yeah, man. Well, and these are all original lyrics too.
Yes, they are.
Wrote these lyrics, and that is an art in and of itself, and so, but you've written lyrics before, yes?
Yeah. Well, I wrote all the lyrics for the Tone albums.
Right. So you've written lyrics before. What makes a good lyric, and who are some of your favorite contemporary songwriters?
Wow.
I know. These fuzzy questions out there.
I gotta say, again, not because he's a friend or I work with him, but I think Bruce is an amazing songwriter and lyrically very, very strong.
Yes.
Very strong lyrically. Oh gosh. I go back to, it never gets old for me, but look at Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
If you really get into Dylan and take some of that periods of writing, if you take it literally, it can be quite trippy.
Right.
But that's just genius stuff. And I guess what makes a great song is I think there's a degree of sincerity that will reach a person. Right. Whether it's a simple song or a complex song, if it's got a lot of words or few words, there's something about it. I was listening to the other day, The Times They Are Changing, and it was like his original thing, and it's all fast and energetic and everything. But you can tell the words are profound, and you can tell that he really means it. Yeah, what he's saying. It doesn't matter that it's just a voice and a guitar. That sort of just shines through everything. The sincerity and the depth behind what is being said. Yeah,
totally. And that's why, other people can try to write songs like Bob Dylan, but they don't sound like, Bob Dylan songs, because there was a sincerity. And whereas his stuff, just like you're saying, it's like ornate, super poetic stuff, it still rings true the same way like a Randy Newman lyric, which is a little more down to earth, rings just as true. Or a Bruce tune, it's just, these are concrete images, but they just,
Tom Waits.
Yeah, exactly, man. But the new album is great, and like I say, it feels like you wrote it just like about this moment, which is crazy to hear that it has been brewing, since
You know what it is though? It's a kind of a sad commentary on how long stuff has been.
Right.
It's nothing new, unfortunately.
Yeah, I know.
That song Urban Psalm number 3, I wrote that after Rodney King got beat,
Wow.
Yeah. So that's going back a ways. Whenever that happened, that was originally written. I hung on to it. I rearranged it. I dug it up. I re-sung it. it's all of the lyrics are original. Every word in
Yeah.
that's original. I did re-sung the lead vocal and the backgrounds, and then I rearranged it like last October, November of last year. There's a whole section. I got the idea to add Dr. King's speech, the idea to add the chants of the college kids and all that. So it's kind of old and kind of brand new at the same time. You know?
Yeah. That is so true. But like I say, at the same time, super, super musical. This band, you know, absolutely grooves. This is powerful stuff, David. Really, really good album, man.
Thank you, man. Thank you very much.
And listen, hey, I just want to say thank you for coming on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you. If people want to like follow along, know what's going on with you, what's the best place for them to do that?
They can go to the website. They can go to The Orchard.
Okay.
And the record's available. You know, there's a video out for the title track, Eyes Wide Open, and we just released a video for the second track, In the Middle of the Night. They're like lyric videos. So at the end of those videos, you see everywhere it's available, but it's like Apple Music, Amazon, you know, all over the place.
Right on. Well, we will add those videos when we post this on our site.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
we'll add those videos there. We'll add links to buy the album. And yeah, man, David, this has been a pleasure, dude. Thank you. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
I will see you backstage. I'm going to sign off with people watching at home.
All right.
So long, David. All right. So thank you once again to our guest, David Sancious. The new album, Eyes Wide Open, came out in April, so it's available now. Now it's time to buy it. Go buy the album. Go buy some merch. Let's support these artists. And yeah, that'll do it for today's episode. If you like what you saw, follow us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, hit that notification button so that you know whenever we go live. We are running a subscription offer right now for just 99 cents per month for 3 months. You can unlock unlimited digital access to our site. Plus, we'll enroll you to receive our forthcoming print issue, which, get this, everyone, is all about jazz and film. Jazz in the movies, jazz documentaries, actors who love jazz. That is coming out in December. And like I say, you subscribe, you get unlimited digital access for 3 months, and we'll enroll you to receive a complimentary print issue of Jazz on Film when that thing comes out in December. That'll do it for today's episode. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. I'll see you next time. Bye.